Welcome back to the channel, where we cut through the headlines to uncover the real stories shaping our world. Today, we're diving into one of those moments that feels like it leaped straight out of a geopolitical thriller: the arrival of Syrian President Ahmed al-Sharaa in Washington, D.C. for a face-to-face with President Donald Trump at the White House. It's not just a meeting, it's a seismic shift, the kind that could redraw maps, topple alliances, and maybe even spark a fragile hope for peace in a region that's bled for over a decade. Picture this: a man once hunted by U.S. drones, the shadowy head of a militant group with al-Qaeda ties, stepping off Air Force One's equivalent onto American soil, greeted not with cuffs but with handshakes and red carpets. How did we get here, and what does it mean for the future? Let's unpack it step by step, like we're sitting across from each other over a strong cup of coffee, piecing together the puzzle. To understand the gravity of al-Sharaa's arrival, we have to rewind a bit, back to the man himself and the chaos that forged him. Ahmed al-Sharaa, born in 1982 in the dusty outskirts of Damascus, wasn't always the suited-up leader we see striding through marble halls today. No, he was Ahmed Hussein al-Sharaa, a young engineering student radicalized in the fires of the Iraq War, who crossed the border in the mid-2000s to fight what he saw as an occupying force. By 2011, as the Arab Spring ignited Syria into civil war, he re-emerged under the nom de guerre Abu Muhammad al-Jolani, founding Jabhat al-Nusra, al-Qaeda's Syrian franchise. It was brutal, unyielding stuff: suicide bombings, territorial grabs, a name synonymous with terror lists from Washington to London. The U.S. slapped a $5 million bounty on his head, and for years he was the bogeyman, the face of jihadist insurgency against Bashar al-Assad's regime. But here's where the story twists. Al-Jolani wasn't just another firebrand. He was pragmatic, almost ruthlessly so. In 2016, he pulled off an audacious rebrand, severing overt ties with al-Qaeda to form Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS, a coalition that promised governance over gore. Idlib became his fiefdom, a rebel stronghold where he built schools, fixed roads, and even cracked down on his own extremists. It was a slow burn, this evolution from ideologue to administrator, but by 2023, as Assad's grip weakened under Russian and Iranian strains, al-Sharaa was positioning himself not as a destroyer, but as a unifier. Fast forward to late 2024, and the dam breaks. Assad's regime, propped up for so long by Moscow's Chets and Tehran's militias, crumbles in a whirlwind offensive led by HTS forces. It's December, the snows are falling on Damascus, and al-Sharaa, now dropping the Jolani alias entirely, declares himself transitional president. No victory lap in a pickup truck. Instead, he extends olive branches to minorities, pledges elections within a year, and starts whispering about economic revival. The world watches warily. Europe dithers, the UN calls for caution, but in Washington, under a returning Trump administration, something clicks. Trump, ever the dealmaker, sees opportunity where others see risk. Syria's got oil fields, strategic ports, and a position that could hem in Iran's supply lines to Hezbollah. Plus, with ISIS remnants still festering in the eastern deserts, a stabilized Damascus could be the missing piece in the anti-terror puzzle. Enter the sanctions dance. Just days before al-Sharaa's plane touches down at Dulles on Saturday, the U.S. Treasury announces a partial lift, easing restrictions on reconstruction aid, banking access, and even some energy exports. It's not full forgiveness. Al-Sharaa still got a past to reckon with, and human rights watchdogs are screaming bloody murder about Idlib's dark chapters. But it's enough to signal intent, a green light for this improbable summit. Now let's get to the heart of it. What went down in those White House corridors on Monday morning? Al-Sharaa, dressed in a crisp dark suit that screams statesman rather than warrior, is ushered into the Oval Office by a beaming Trump, who's already tweeting, or whatever the 2025 equivalent is, about welcoming a strong leader committed to peace. The optics are electric. Two outsiders, both survivors of their own battles. Trump with his indictments and elections, al-Sharaa with his foxholes and foxholes, locking eyes across the Resolute desk. Sources leaking from the room paint a picture of pragmatic horse trading. Trump, fresh off his Abraham Accords triumphs, pushes for Syria's formal entry into the US-led coalition against ISIS, and Al-Sharaa doesn't blink. He signs on the dotted line, pledging intelligence sharing, joint patrols in the Euphrates Valley, and even basing rights for American advisors. In return, a nod to normalizing ties, with whispers of lifting the Caesar Act entirely if elections go off without a hitch. Security tops the agenda, of course. How to neuter the Kurdish PYG in the northeast without sparking another Turkish incursion, and ways to squeeze Iran's IRGC out of the power vacuum. But it's the subtext that fascinates: energy. Syria's offshore gas fields, eyed by Israel and Europe alike, could flow westward under U.S. protection, undercutting Russia's stranglehold post-Ukraine. Trump reportedly jokes about making Syria great again, and Al-Sharaa, with that measured smile, counters with talk of a new Silk Road from the Mediterranean to the Gulf. It's theater, sure, but laced with real politics that could reshape trade routes. As the motor car rolls out past the protesters, a mix of Syrian exiles waving pre-2011 flags and human rights activists chanting about forgotten detainees, you can't help but wonder about the broader ripples. This isn't just a bilateral bromance, it's a gauntlet thrown down to the old guard. Russia, Assad's erstwhile savior, is fuming in the Kremlin, their Tartus naval base suddenly looking exposed without Damascus's favor. Putin might double down on cyber ops or armed dissentents, but with Ukraine draining resources, their leverage is waning. Iran, they're apoplectic. Hezbollah's lifeline through Syria is severed, and Soleimani's ghost must be howling at the thought of a Sunni-led Damascus cozying up to the great Satan. Expect proxy flare-ups in Lebanon or Iraq, tit-for-tat strikes that test Al-Sharaa's resolve. But here's where the tantalizing what-if. A Middle East where Syria brokers peace between Ankara and the Kurds, hosts regional summits on water rights, and lures back its diaspora with pipelines of investment. Imagine refugees returning not to rubble, but to rebuilt Aleppo bazaars buzzing with Turkish traders and Qatari cash. But let's not get carried away in the optimism. This is Trumpian diplomacy, bold strokes over fine print, and Al-Sharaa's track record is a ledger of blood. Critics, from Amnesty International to exiled Assad loyalists, argue he's rebranding a theocracy, not reforming one. HTS prisons in Idlib are said to hold thousands. Chemical attack denials linger like smoke, and his inclusivity pledge rings hollow to Aleppo's Christians and Druze who've seen too many broken promises. Is he genuinely pivoting, or just playing the long game for leverage? History's littered with such figures. Think Taliban 2.0 in Kabul, all suits and no substance. The real test comes post-summit. Will Al-Sharaa deliver on minority protections, free elections, and dismantling jihadi networks? Or will this White House glow fade into familiar shadows of betrayal? As Al-Sharaa boards his flight home this evening, Syria on the cusp of something uncharted, one thing's clear. This visit isn't an endpoint, but a spark. It challenges us to rethink redemption in international relations. Can yesterday's enemy become tomorrow's partner, or does the past always claw back? For the people of Syria, weary after 14 years of siege and starvation, it's a flicker of dawn after endless night. Whether it blooms into morning or snuffs out remains the trillion-dollar question. What do you think, viewers? Is this the start of a stable Levant, or just another chapter in the forever war? Drop your thoughts below, smash that like if you're as gripped as I am, and subscribe for the follow-ups as this unfolds. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical. This world's too complex for sound bites. Cheers!